Yo guys, Superior David here. Been about a week since the nerfs and buffs have gone live, and in this time we've started to see a meta starting to take shape. So I thought now would be the perfect time to go over what I think are some of the best decks so far that you could use to hit legend. But real fast, I just want to give a quick thank you to all of you because just the other day we hit 5,000 subs on the channel, which it's honestly just mind-blowing and of course, you know, very superior. But anyways, thank you guys for just all the support over the years. Truly appreciate it. And if you haven't yet subbed to the channel, now is the perfect time because I've got a lot of fun stuff planned over the next couple months that you definitely don't want to miss out on. But anyways, without further ado, let's get into these decks. So first up, we've got the deck that, you know, I don't think it's the best deck in the game, but it's the deck that's truly dictating the meta right now, and that is Miracle Rogue. Now, the idea behind this deck is that, you know, the early turns, you're really just chilling. You're trading your Blackwire Cutlasses, your SI7 Extortions, maybe going into turn 3, you play Shroud of Concealment, just so you can get that Wild Paw Null discounted to 0 mana. This is very important because going into like the, mid game, you want to be able to pop off with the Sinstone Graveyard, or where are you, the good old Necrolord Draka. And you do this by playing just as many cheap cards as possible. So again, 0 mana null is very important for this. But anyways, yes, you play like all these cheap cards, you get a big old dagger, you make a big old stealth dude, and then you can just snowball that to victory and win the game by like, you know, like turns like 4, 5, and 6. It's actually disgusting. But if games go long, that's okay because we got the newly buffed Edwin at 3 mana to sort of just reload our hand and also just apply a lot of pressure. I'm 100% expecting this card to get nerfed, so, you know, don't be surprised by that because at 3 mana, Edwin is just proven to be disgusting, especially because we cut out a lot of the more expensive cards you've often seen in this list before, like the, you know, like the Krakatoa and the Scab's Hero card. We don't have them here, and instead we keep the curve very low so we can more consistently like just pop off with Edwin. But even beyond that, by not running the Krakatoa, we also more consistently hit like Knowles or even like Edwin himself off a Shroud of Concealment, and that is really freaking good. Again, I don't think Miracle Rogue is the best deck in the game, but it's really powerful, and you could just do some really disgusting things way before like any deck can really deal with it. But that being said, there are some decks that can counter Miracle Rogue, and that brings us to Quest Priest, which is really positioning itself as the best counter to Miracle Rogue for ladder at the moment. And that is mainly due to Quest Priest's ability to actually deal with all these giant minions that Rogue can make early in the game. We got like the Light It Burns, which is just fantastic single target removal. We've got Shadow Word Ruin, which could deal with the dudes even if they're stealth. And then we've also got Light Bomb, which is, you know, a bit slower but can accomplish the same thing. And then if your opponent like pops off with the Edwin, hey, no big deal because we got the Shard of the Naru. And then even if your opponent like makes a giant weapon with Draka, we're not like thrilled with it, but we've got, you know, a ton of healing between like the Desperate Prayer, Gift of the Naru, and then also like the Light Shower Elemental, just really good at slowing down that aggressive push from the rogues, as well as just keeping you like healthy on your life total. And then to beat up on slower decks, we do have the Quest, of course. I guess honestly, the Quest is a bit of a liability in this meta because every deck is running Theotar right now, so there's always the risk that you're going to be like have your quest rewards stolen, which I think a lot of times you just got to roll the dice on. Just really got to like read the situation. I will try to like use my like Theotar or where are you, good old Mutinous, to try to like suss out whether my opponent has Theotar or not. But again, it's Hearthstone. At the end of the day, a lot of times you just got to roll the dice, hope your opponent either doesn't have it to steal your quest reward or they just whiff, which does happen, and it feels hysterical when it does. So at the end of the day, the main thing Quest Priest has going for it is just its incredible matchup against Miracle Rogue. But, you know, it does do well against like any other board-based decks just due to the sheer amount of removal we have, you know, with like the Clean the Scenes, Lightmon Netherdrake, Shower Ruin, whatever. But you do have to watch out for a couple key decks in the meta that will just make you have a bad time if you're playing Quest Priest. And that takes us on to Skeleton Mage, which is a deck that can actually do quite well against Miracle Rogue. Not as well as Priest, but, you know, Mage has a lot of freeze with like the Flurry, the Location with the Nightcloak Sanctum, as well as the Blizzard, which can actually deal with like stealth dudes, and of course, you know, Varden as well. Mage is just really good at stalling out those rogues, and then you could even do some dirty things like play the Solid Alibi to, you know, like buy yourself some time to get to like the mid to late game. But at the end of the day, what makes this deck really powerful, in my opinion, is the Magister Dawngrasp. Dawngrasp just allows you to apply just like never-ending pressure with this hero power that just scales infinitely. You could do some really disgusting things with like, you know, like the Brand Bronzebeard and then the Reckless Apprentice to just represent, you know, it represents oftentimes more burst than like Mordresh, and that's actually crazy to think about. But yeah, Donny G, really powerful. Even though this deck is called Skeleton Mage, I think Donny G is just proven to be the backbone of like every Mage deck. But to back this all up, we do have a couple other win conditions, like again, like the Mordresh, or you could do some dirty things with like Sire Denathrius and Kael'thas, or, you know, Kel'Thuzad for that matter. But one thing in particular I like about this specific list, which is different from the one I talked about in my last video on Skeleton Mage, is that we run the like Rune of the Archmage, which I think is just hysterically scammy in this meta game. You could even like use it to gain like a bunch of armor potentially with Deepwater Evoker, and it also just fits in very nicely because we do run the Grey Sage Parrot, Spirit, which is usually used to, recur like Blizzard or like Deathborn. But again, just recurring Rune of the Archmage could just be totally scammy. So don't like count that out as a Hail Mary if you're behind the 8-ball and like you just need some way to scam out your opponent. That could sort of do it sometimes. Now, in my superior, humble opinion here, I would say that Skeleton Mage is sort of positioned as the best deck in the game at the moment, mainly due to the Donny G, but I think overall Skeleton Mage just has so many different ways to attack opponents. And then with just like all the stalling with the freeze stuff and then the ability to mitigate damage with Solid Alibi, you could just do a lot of scammy stuff with Mage right now. But at the end of the day, it isn't invincible, and there is a deck that I'd say does pretty well against Skeleton Mage if you're looking to counter it. And that counter would be good old Ramp Druid. Essentially, you get the Wild Heart Guff down and you just start accumulating so much mana, and I think you could really overwhelm, not just Skeleton Mage, but really like any deck in the game. This is the list that runs the Naga Giants as well as the Ibis with the Oracle of Elune, and this is the list that I've really been favoring lately over the build that runs just more nature spells, because let's be honest here, every deck in the game right now is running Theotar, and Theotar, it could just be so scammy for Ramp Druid, like if they steal like your Guff or if they steal your Denathrius. I feel like, you don't lose the game, but you tend to struggle a bit. We do have some other win conditions, like the Insatiable Devour is quite nice, as well as like, just value off of Topior. But with the Naga Giants, I really like these because, you could play them alongside Oracle of Elune. And then, hey, say you're going up against like a Mage or something, they freeze your minions. That's totally cool because you just play the Smothering Starfish, get a big old smork game with the Naga Giants, and you can just win the games off that. Now, as for other matchups, I think Ramp Druid does pretty well against most of the field. Outside of people just like experimenting with random, like, more like lower to the ground board based decks, the Miracle Rogue matchup, I think is ever so slightly unfavored for Ramp Druid. I bet it really just depends on whether you hit like your ramp or not in the early game, or like whether you could steal something good off of Theotar. I feel like from my experience, that's what it's normally come down to. But Ramp Druid is also a very solid deck for ladder. And if you're like me and are just getting a little sick of all those mages out there, then definitely check out Ramp Druid to just put those mages in their place. Now, to round out this list, we've got everyone's favorite archetype, Quest Hunter. I think it's definitely a step down from the other decks mentioned on this list, but I do think it's better than people are giving it credit for. Because while it has a really bad matchup against Miracle Rogue, Quest Hunter truly does excel against Skeleton Mage as well as Quest Priest, which, I mean, Skeleton Mage I think is like the most popular deck in the game because it's really good, and then people are just playing a lot of Quest Priest to counter the Miracle Rogue. So if you could just dodge those Miracle Rogues, I think you could do pretty well with Quest Hunter. And I think this list is relatively standard. The balance changes didn't really hit this one too much. You still want to run like the like the Wild Spirits, which is really good at applying like pressure in the mid game that I feel like oftentimes Quest Hunter often lacked, just due to not really running many minions. So like the Wild Sea card's still very nice, and I'd say most of the time, if you can, try to get down the Beastalker Tavish before you make your hero power cost 0 mana, so you can get that 0 mana summon pet hero power, which is really good in like every matchup except for Mage. Against Mage, keep the good old like 2 damage hero power from Hunter, because Mage, as we know, could just stall out games and be super obnoxious with their freezing. That's what makes this deck so good against Mage, because we don't play stuff on board, we send stuff face, and mages just cry about it. So if you don't like mages, and if you don't like priests, which I hear people don't really like priests too much, then Quest Hunter is the deck for you. So there you have it. These are what I think are the best decks in the game. And just to recap real fast, we've got Miracle Rogue over here, which is the deck that I think is dictating the meta, and that in turn gets countered by Quest Priest pretty handedly. But watch out, Quest Priest, because Skeleton Mage totally wrecks you with that wonderful Donny G that we all know and love. And Skeleton Mage also does pretty well against Miracle Rogue, so don't sleep on it for that purpose as well. But Skeleton Mage has to watch out for those Ramp Druids, because Guff just allows Ramp Druid to overwhelm those Skeleton Mages, and Druid could also just do pretty mean stuff to Quest Priest as well. And then to round it all out, we got the Quest Hunter, which I think it really struggles against Miracle Rogue, but it has a solid matchup against Quest Priest and Skeleton Mage, and I think for that reason it earns a spot on this list. But anyways, let me know what you guys think about these decks down in the comments, and if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe, because if you made it this far, you're probably digging something I'm doing. And I guess, in the meantime, stay superior, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. And of course, thanks again for the 5K subs. Later. Get